Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5, and are presented by GameTime. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. We've done a lot of podcasts together. We've done a lot of podcasts together. Not sure there's been two people on this earth who've done more podcasts together than you and me, but today we're doing something different. We've never done this before.
Talking Red Sox?
Mailbag. Yeah, I
okay.
wish it was Red Sox. There's a lot to talk about with that. If we had a Red Sox podcast right now, we'd have a lot to dive into. Lots of things to rip the team for, but also be like, oh, crochet trade. I like it. It's a mailbag day. And usually we only do these if we're riding solo, but today we're going to answer them together. And you got quite a lot of questions. Some I imagine were similar, so you probably blended them together, I would assume.
Yes. Yeah, we got, again, shout out to all of our listeners who sent along questions. Yeah, we got plenty of them. We'll roll through a couple of them. A lot of them have to do with the loss on Thursday against the Seattle Kraken. A lot of, I think, doom and gloom, as expected. I think if you listen to Bruins beat that came out recently, I think it's the same tenor, same mood, I would say.
We literally just recorded that.
Yes, if you can't tell by the fact that I'm wearing the exact same outfit, yes.
I didn't even try to change.
I was pondering wearing a different hat and seeing if that would have thrown people off. I'm like, wait a second. But alas, I wasn't gonna go that far. Evan, are you ready to start?
I am ready to start.
All right. We got this first one from Marcusi, who asks, with it feeling like the team's identity is directionless, does it seem like a good time to begin funneling in some of the youth talent in Providence up to get some NHL playing time and see which guys can really translate their game to the big leagues? Do you want to lead us off there, Evan?
Yeah.
Shout out once again to Marcusi for sending along the question.
Yes, thank you, Marcusi. I would agree. I mean, I think Patra's a great place to start. He's been doing great down in Providence. He's got 8 points in 5 games or something like that.
Yep.
He's been really good. I know Lysell hasn't been doing a heck of a lot, but at some point, I do think you have to see what you have in him. Now, I would assume that you would start bringing up this Providence talent after you trade guys off your roster. That would be something you would do in sort of September call-ups in baseball. So we're not used to this. We're not used to Bruins doing this. This would probably be something you do in late February, March, and very early April. I don't see them really doing a bunch of youth coming up, but Merkulov, Patra, Lysell, I'd like to see up here at some point in the not so distant future. It's not going to be the reason your team starts winning, but I agree with Marcusi in that you do want to see what you have.
Yeah, and I also think you look at the amount of elite talent or even intriguing NHL talent in the system. It's not that great. So after you get past those big three, I guess, of Lysell, Merkulov, and Patra, then it's all right, is it more of just fourth line, like a Duran or something like that, right? And I think you let those guys, honestly, the fourth line, you don't have to worry, they're fine as it works. Yeah, exactly. It's not great, but yeah, it also might depend on what the exact injury status is of the guys on the team right now. We haven't gotten an update yet on Elias Lindholm, who left Thursday's game early against the Kraken, and also very late in that game. I don't know if you saw it, but I think Pavel Zacha took a puck off the skate from I think it was friendly fire. I want to say it was Brennan Carlo. He didn't play the last 7 minutes of that game, so not great. So that
I did not see that. I fell asleep.
Yeah, well, listen, that was Let me tell you, you didn't miss all that much. So again, I don't know if that's just the game was getting away from them. Zacha hold you back or what have you. But if both those guys are banged up, then yeah, you hit the point where it's all right. A guy like Patra, I think especially, is a guy that should be called up sooner rather than later. I mean, just the fact that it's kind of what we mentioned before, right, Evan, in terms of when we were assessing back in training camp of the pros and cons of putting Patra down there. And I think you've seen the benefits, right, of a guy that was kind of struggling to find his game a little bit. You go down to Providence against lesser competition, you play in 18, 19 minutes a night, and he's producing, and he's probably feeling confident about his game. You can make the argument that you want him to continue to kind of marinate down there and get more confident, but you also look at this NHL roster, regardless of let's say Lindholm and Zacha are good to go on Saturday in Vancouver. Even with that, like I think the lack of skill, the lack of playmaking on this team, it's evident right now. So I think Padra's an obvious one, and I agree. Like you look at Lysell, the numbers haven't been there. I think he's got 10 points so far, like 3 goals, 7 assists. Not good enough, but if you're not going to find out now, like when are you with a guy like Lysell? I'd rather you bring him up here and you play him 7 games and he's got 1 assist and he's not doing enough, then like as opposed to just like having him be this white whale that you hope that, well, like if you're just hoping for him to go off in Providence, all of a sudden score, 7-8 goals in a 7-game stretch, that's all well and good. But you look at what he can do well, which is skate, which is, kind of make something out of nothing in terms of offensive plays. You're missing that right now. Hell, maybe you bring him up here. He does well. And again, like maybe that's giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt because this was supposed to be a good pivotal training camp for him. Didn't do a whole lot. Not great. But I think when you look at just the lack of finishing ability on this team and what he can provide, and even like Merkulov, like he didn't have a standout, I would say, stint up here earlier, but you saw like on that power play when he was out there in the second unit as kind of another guy waiting for a one-timer, like put him out, do that. Like that gives you a different look, at least a guy that maybe can score you some goals. So I think at this point where if you're looking for a shakeup, and as you said, maybe trades have to happen first, but what do you have to lose when especially guys like Merkulov and Lysell, like you got to figure out what you have in these guys sooner rather than later. We're going to wait till next year. I don't think that's even going to be the situation. So,
well, we keep saying that. We keep saying, next year's the year where you're going to see those guys. I also think Lysell has no trade value as of now. I see people all the time being like, trade Lysell. He can be part of the package. No, it's not much. There's not much value there. The whole idea of him being a first round pick is sort of gone at this point. And the whole idea of him being more a guy that hasn't worked in North American professional hockey yet is the main narrative with him. And so yeah, bring him up and see what you got. Because guess what? If he comes up and he's nothing, then it's like, all right, well, didn't really work out.
It sucks, but how is that any different from where he is right now? Like you already got the Wyatt Johnsons and those guys who are already taking off. So what if he comes up here and he's a bust and can't give you anything? Well, at least as opposed to just having him in Providence where you're like, well, the numbers aren't good, but the skill's there, but they don't want to let's figure it out. Like it's not like this team has plenty of guys that are scoring at the NHL level. See what
and you don't have many guys at the NHL level who have on this roster around the league, yes, but on this roster, no, who have his skill. Same with Merkulov. Merkulov is such a highly offensive player. Your middle 6 right now does not have many of those guys. Coyle's not one of them. Frederick, Geeky, Zacha's in your top 6, this and that. But you don't have a lot of that on your roster. So I'm with you. You got nothing to lose. And if Lysell comes up and does great, A, he could be a long-term fit here, or B, then you trade him. You build up his stock a little bit and deal him. So I don't see the problem with bringing him up. I want to see all 3 of those guys. And Patra's legitimately earned it and probably should be back. So that's a whole different case, but I agree with you.
Bring up the kids.
Let them play. Let the kids have at it.
Next question comes from Vince, who asks 2 questions. 1, has Jeremy Swayman lost the respect of his teammates? And 2, if his play continues to falter, do the Bruins entertain trade offers for him in the offseason? Thanks in advance.
You want to take this one first?
First, yes. Thank you for the question, Vince. In terms of losing respect for teammates, I don't buy into that. I know that was a narrative early on of the Bruins resent in terms of his holdout and all those things like that. I don't get too much into that of, talking to a few players also one-on-one. It's from their perspective, the whole thing is all right, if you had a beef with someone, am I intentionally, and I take a lot of pride in my game and I get paid my contract, am I intentionally going to make myself play like a dickhead and look like a fucking asshole on the ice just to own my teammate who I have a grudge against?
Got him.
That's something you see in movies. You don't see it. I think that's the whole thing. Dealing with these pro athletes, these guys are are very proud of their own games and also think they're really fucking good at what they do, which they are. Like, they don't let grievances come in the way of them looking like a dickhead on the ice, I think is the main thing for it.
Carlo just laying guys by him just to give breakaways to Jeremy Swayman.
And again, that has been like, I've heard that storyline on like radio and stuff like that. And it adds a lot of drama and those things, but I don't think it's something like that where it's guys are letting him down just because he didn't like the contracts or anything like that. So I don't think he's lost respect for his teammates. I think it's just the play has not been there, especially from Swayman himself, which he'd be the first to say. In terms of trading Swayman, I think for me, it's still a guy that even if his numbers aren't there this year and you hope he improves, he's still a guy that you've committed the money to that I still think he's a foundational piece of this team. Like the timing of him regressing this year has not been great when you look at just all the drama and stuff like that. It's not great, but I mean, look at Shesterkin had a down year last year too. Not saying that Shesterkin and Swayman are 1A, 1B, right? But this is also a sport with a lot of variance that I bank more on just the variance of shit going haywire this year as opposed to it being a trend of regression, I would say, off of one, really, really bad 2-month stretch here as opposed to like being like, this is the start of the downturn for Jeremy Swayman. I'm not getting to that yet, so I don't think you should trade him, like even if you get to this offseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. He has a no movement clause. He just signed here. Like, there's no way he would approve of any team going to any team. And in terms of even if they could, like, I'm with you on this. I consider him one of the 3 pillars of this team. He's one of your main parts of your core going forward. I know the Bruins have been good at developing goalies over the last 20 years under goalie Bob, but like, if you did trade Swayman, who's your next guy? Like, what is who internally are you turning to? Are you signing someone? Like, if you have a good goalie prospect, you hold on to them and you develop them. And they've done that with Swayman and it's worked. And I know this season's been bad so far, but I think given the start to the year, given the fact that the entire team has been bad, it's not just Swayman. It's not like everyone's having great years and Swayman's having a horrible one and he's losing them game after game when they should be winning. He's lost them a couple games, but they've also like lost the games past him too. I mean, guys have just been on like Winnipeg, Dallas, all these games. So I'm not there on trading him. I do think you have to see what you have next year when he has a full training camp and how he rebounds from this. In terms of losing respect, like, do I think guys were probably annoyed with the contract situation? Yeah, I do. Do I think that, it affected training camp? Yeah, it did. But there were other things, and they're not playing worse in front of him because of it. I'm with you. Like, they're probably
it's not like they're in like the kitchen area and they all sit at the table with their trays and Swayman sits down and they go like,
bye.
It's not like that.
It isn't. And obviously you want guys to get paid and everything. And I think they all want to get paid what they feel they're worth and then some. But like, yeah, I think it caused a big distraction. It was the biggest storyline throughout camp. You also had Montgomery and his future as like a real storyline throughout camp. And so it was sort of the perfect storm of crap. Plus guys just were really complacent. And even you heard Sweeney mention this after Montgomery got fired and guys just kind of thinking, oh, I got 60 points last year. I'll just do it again. Like, you also had that too. So we're like, are they intentionally playing like crap in front of him? No. But do I think that there are guys who were annoyed by it and were irked and are like, damn, can this dude like shut his mouth? Probably. So yeah. So fun stuff.
That is the Swayman talk. Evan, before we go to more mailbags, do you want to give a shout out to PrizePicks? I do, because it's PrizePicks time. Because PrizePicks time is all the time. It's the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Connor, we can't all be perfect. So it is very nice. I know we try very hard, but it's very nice. They have this feature. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick
as 15 minutes. Now, Bruins tough to do right now. I mentioned this on Bruins Beat. You could do time on ice, maybe do hits, Brad Marchand, more goals. Maybe you do that. But the Celtics exist. More points for Tatum, Brown. You also have, I almost said the Patriots, but I don't know if I'd go with that one either. Drake May's really good. Maybe passing yards for Drake May. I don't think that's a bad idea. Going up against the Cardinals this week. Maybe you feel that's a winner. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's continue with questions. These are good. I saw some of them on Twitter, so I'm excited to answer some of them.
Yeah. So this person's Twitter name is actually just a flex. So
Respect
thank you for the question. He asked, or she, I don't know. It's just a flex. So
the muscle, the bicep asked.
Yes. Asks, considering the Bruins have no 1C in sight, barring Poitras or Letourneau surpassing expectations, they don't have the assets to trade for one. Do you think it's worth selling this year in hopes to drafting a center that can play while 88, 73, and 1 are still in their prime?
Yes. I think this is the whole thing. And again, the jury is out on Letourneau. The jury's gonna be out on Letourneau for a long time. I think BC has him as the fourth line center right now. It's gonna be years.
Yeah.
It's gonna take time. In turn, I am for this, and I'm not saying we can get into. I think someone asked about Marchand if my eyes proved me correct. So we'll get to that in a bit. But I'm at the point after the Winnipeg and Seattle games where I fully believe this team should enter a little bit of a retool for the rest of the year. It doesn't need to be next year too. Again, it comes down to, do you have our guys? What are you getting for these guys? What are you getting for Trent Frederick or Geeky? Do you have to dip into trading a Carlo or a Coyle? Then you get into a little bit bigger returns, but those Carlo would be a legitimate loss. He's a leader on this team. That's a real guy. I like Brandon Carlo a lot as a player. I know it hasn't been the best season, but you're getting into that. But yeah, they have their first round pick this year. And if they continue at this rate, it's probably going to be somewhere 15 to 20. And if they make the playoffs, sort of in that range too. But if they could get if you could find a way to get another first, I'm with them. If you can continue to draft centers and stuff like that, or even just the best available, because Letourneau was sort of the pick. Letourneau was the 1C pick, the swing for the fences type thing. If you just want to pick the best available in the first round, you could do that too. But yeah, I'm for that. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you have to target another center, which sucks, right? Because I feel I think we mentioned this on a few podcasts earlier, that what this team desperately needs to add to the system is a guy, a winger who you look at his numbers and he lit up the OHL. I remember last year, the guy that I think Ty really wanted was that Liam Greentree, who played on a really crappy OHL team, or maybe it was WHL, but was lighting it up. And it's a guy like that who you can at least be excited about too. Maybe it remains to be seen how they do in Providence or the NHL, but you draft them and they just stuff the stat sheet in juniors. We got someone there. It's kind of remember the first few years of Stanika, we're oh my God, this guy is unbelievable. Again, maybe they're just injecting false hope, whereas it's kind of the inverse of Letourneau, where I think we all said before the year, this guy should be in the USHL this year. First year is going to be a lot of growing pains, but you hope it maps out for him. So, hell, if you get another first round pick or something like that, that'd be great in terms of targeting a center and a scoring wing. It's going to be tough this year because it does feel listen, the draft can change rapidly over the next couple of months, but it does feel it's a couple of top centers, a couple of top wings, and then a lot of the middle of the first rounds, defensemen. There's a few guys. There's a Jake O'Brien, which I just always point him out because he feels like a guy the Bruins would take because of his name. I think he's there's a few that I think that could be middle of the pack, 10 to 20 that are more of trying to think of guys last year where there was a few guys that were taken before the Bruins got on the clock with Letourneau that were kind of like high floor, low ceiling centermen, where they were viewed as like pretty solid, like 3Cs. Like I don't know how many centermen.
There was one name we talked about. I forget who it was.
They're really bothering me as to. I'd have to look it up, but that would take away some time. But it does feel like this draft is kind of similar, where I think it's more of smaller centermen or guys with that high floor. Which again, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like the complete inverse of that is a guy like Letourneau, where it's like we don't know what his floor is, but shit, he could be like a Tage Thompson, right? But I think for the Bruins, the most important thing is just sticking with that first round pick and bringing some sort of forward into this organization to see what you have. The more the more you're able to draft, the more you're able to hopefully hit on at least one of these guys. Not every single guy is going to be a home run, obviously, but the more you jump, the more you put in a lottery ticket, the more chances you're going to have of cashing in is more or less the thing is. So I do think that if you're able to get another first round pick, I don't know how exactly you get that, I would say, but to Mr. Flex, who sent along the question, I don't know how you're getting another first or something like that, but the more picks you can accumulate and hold on to, because again, as I said on Bruins Beat before, I'm not trading a first for a guy like Kreider that maybe helps you out right now when the rest of the bones of this roster, the rest of these guys haven't done nearly enough to show you that it's worth investing in right now. That could change maybe, but right now I'm holding on to that first round pick and getting some sort of forward that gets some skills, some scoring to this team in hopefully the near future.
I looked up the centers. I had to do this. There were 3 that we talked about, and I think one we talked about more than others. So Sasha Boisvert went to the Blackhawks at 18. Yep. Michael Hagg was the center. He went to the Canadiens at 21, and Cole Bowden.
He's the high floor kind of like he could be like your 3C for like the next like physical smart player. Maybe he's not going to light the lamp all that much, but
he went at 24 to Utah. So one before you. I remember seeing that and being like, oh damn, there goes the Bruins guy. And then they end up taking Letourneau. I also think like it doesn't just need to be a first that they can go out and get. Like hypothetically, if they did a retool and they dealt Frederick and Geeky and, maybe some other pieces and they got, they have a couple extra seconds, thirds or whatever, like you can get good guys there too. We at New England Hockey Journal cover the local kids getting drafted quite a bit. And the feeling is always your first 3 rounds are your most proven commodities or swings and stuff. 4 through 7, if you're picked in the 4th round, you could also be a pick in the 7th round. Like it's such a crapshoot from 4 through 7. So if you can get some seconds or some thirds or whatever, like there's value to that too. There's value there as well. You know where else there's value? Game Time. There is value at Game Time because there's nothing like watching an NBA or an NHL game live. The energy, the sounds on the court, sounds on the ice, the memories you make with the people around you. It's the coolest part and it's unmatched. And you can go make these memories with Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks. I've been telling you about it because I really like it. And that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because it filters out the fluff, showing you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And they also have the flash deals, which help me get discounted prices on real good seats. And they have the seat views, which just make life easier because you can picture yourself sitting in those seats watching the game in front of you. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today and create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Connor, what time is it?
A Game Time.
It is approximately Game Time o'clock. So there we go. So, I don't have my watch on, but that's what it would say. It's always Game Time. It's always Game Time. More questions. What else we got?
Yeah. This one is from a couple from Anthony Himmelberger, who asks, have there been any updates on Elias Lindholm? Weeks, months. This team really misses his presence, especially offensively, getting in the rush. He also asks, thoughts on 88, going back and forth on if it's mental or physical. But since he didn't skate before Winnipeg, it's got to be physical. No. So first off, I think with Lindholm, still weeks away. I don't imagine you're going to see him until after the new year, barring something significant in terms of his recovery. I think it's still a bit of a ways away. I don't think we're looking at like February and March or anything like that, but I don't think anything before the new year for him. So it's good to, I think, at least set those expectations of when he'd be back. But as you said, Anthony, you're missing him tremendously. Like not only just the ability to eat the minutes, be solid in his own zone, but yeah, offensively was one of the few guys, even when Montgomery was here, I think this year especially, of getting the message of putting pucks on net, activating, joining the rush. And I think especially when you look at the way they've shifted their mentality under Sacco of like getting any pucks on net as possible. Guy like Lindholm's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. But the guy always seems to be really good at finding those shooting lanes, jumping up into the play, and making things happen. So again, not a lot's gone right for this team, but especially when you look at how they were kind of on the ropes going into that game against the Blues on the road. They ended up winning that game, but where they were at the time, his loss has been huge for this team. I think he's probably been their best overall skater for the first couple of weeks of the year. So that's not great. As far as Pastrnak, where do you sit on that, Evan, in terms of, do you think it's mental, physical? Where are you at with it? Because it ain't good.
No. And like he had his issues prior to the year that were physical and like, that seemed to be dealt with. I know he was, there were questions about him playing in Winnipeg on Tuesday. So maybe it is something physical. It just feels a little mental. Okay, I don't know. I'm not in the room as much as you are. I can't speak to, things that I've heard people say or whatever, but like just watching the games, like there's no confidence when he's going down on a rush one-on-one on a defender. Like it seems like defenders have it easy with him. There was also like a lot of his wrist shots. It's like he's trying that slingshot goal. He's trying to do that. And like that is messing with his regular shot. He hesitates. When he goes when he gets the puck in the one-timer spot on the power play, we talked about this a lot, like backing up almost to the boards just to get open and then just firing it on net to fire it. Like even the power play goal he scored against Winnipeg, I think hit a stick. That's why it went into the top corner. So like something's up. I also just wonder if it's deflating the guys around him. Like, again, you signed here long-term, clearly loves the city, wants to be here. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't, but a big part of him pre-signing it was like, who are you going to play with? And Zacha when they got Zacha, it was like, okay, here's a guy. He's from Czechia as well. Like plays well with Pastrnak, all that. And then it was like, they went out and got Elias Lindholm. It's like, oh my God, like you put him a line with Zacha and Lindholm. Like this line's going to do numbers. And it's broken up after it doesn't work the first couple games. And Lindholm has not fit with Pastrnak yet. And the power play stinks. And I just wonder if it's just depressing of like, Pastrnak carried the offense last year. And I think coming into this year was more of, hey, you're not going to have to do that as much. Lindholm's going to be great. And Zacha and, all these guys are going to carry their weight and they haven't either. And I just wonder if that's part of it where it's like, I'm not playing with anybody who's near my level. And I don't know, like Draisaitl signed up in Edmonton. Like, I don't know who comes in who's at his level that works with him. And we talked about the younger kids earlier. Like Merkulov does have high offense. Like, does that somehow work? I don't know. I don't know who Pasternak's center is for the next couple of years. I don't know. Yeah. So I do think it's mental. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think he's clearly dealing with something. I think his whole offseason was kind of thrown out of whack, which doesn't help out in that regard either. But yeah, I also think it is a lot of it with confidence. And as you said, like, it's not great that he hasn't found a stable center, but like Pasternak's also one of the rare players, I think, in the league that is so good offensively that he should be able to generate with anyone. I mean, shit, look at what he did with what did he do with Eric Holla? Like that was, so
I know.
And it's not trying to pile on Eric Holla, who's had a very good career and has been pretty solid with the Devils as well. But Elias Lindholm's a better player than Eric Holla. Like, and again, we look at like Pavel Zacha went from being a 30-point, like the Devils ready to move on from him, even at his age, to now a guy that should be hovering around 55, 65 points a year. That's like what he's been once he's been with Pastrnak. So I do think he's dealing with some sort of injury, which I think is not helping him. But as you said, there's so many instances where even if he's banged up, which every player is, like once you get to this point of the season, it's only going to get worse as the year goes on. He should still be a guy that's burying pucks. Like he's got that skill level that when he's confident, he can make a lot of plays kind of out of nothing. and you're just seeing him fight it right now, of either being hesitant to shoot, overthinking things in split second. Like, it's just hasn't been there for him right now, and it's need him to snap out of it, because if there's ever a time where the Bruins desperately need him to go off, I mean, it's happened like 7 or 8 times in this season alone where you're like, wow, they could use a 2-goal game from Pastrnak, a nice takeover game. Hasn't been there.
I also wonder, like, physicality wise, you've seen these playoffs teams target him hard and they play him hard. And I don't know, sometimes he seems a little easy to knock off pucks. And I wonder if the MO is kind of out on him during the regular season, where it's like, hey, this team has no other stars. This is the one guy you need to shut down. Just be really physical with him. And that's also kind of hurt his confidence, and that's hindered his ability to really do anything. And like, am I worried about him long term? No. But again, I just, when is he going to snap out of this? This has been pretty much the whole year to this point. So that's been basically over 2 months. So I think it's a mix, but I do think that the lack of confidence it's been there a while.
Yeah, not great at all. Evan, one final one we got is from Mike O'Connor, who asks, hey guys, is it time we start looking at assistant coaches' role with the team? Seems like Kelly and Leach are struggling to keep their system in place, power play, PK, neutral zone, and the D zone, or is it a personnel issue in the lineups? Thank you for the question, Mike. I think it's probably a bit of both. Like, I think it's the roster is what it is, and they're not performing, but I think there are areas where you need more adjustments. I think especially the power play is the one where it's like they got to switch things up. I think the D zone structure, like, you can look at the numbers and be like, wow, they've regressed. They weren't all that great last year either before Leach got there. They were giving up a lot of high danger looks, a lot of quality chances, and they were just bailed out by Ullmark and Swayman both playing at a very high level. So I think that's more personnel, but I think the power play right now is something that needs to change in terms of getting more guys involved in the bumper, which you haven't seen with Elias Lindholm, who we don't know what his status is now. Moving guys around a little bit, maybe like moving Paster off of his usual spot, having him more mobile and holding onto the puck in other areas, maybe up high or something like that. I think that power play, where how stagnant it's been with the talent that is out there, that's something that does need to change.
I completely agree. I think that needs fresh eyes. I know Kelly has stayed on as the power play guy, because I know Sacco was adamant that, hey, as I take over, we're not going to change every single thing. We're not going to change all assignments and stuff immediately. I do think you need to change that. Who takes that over? I don't know. Like, does Leach take hold of it? Does Sacco, do they bring in another assistant like mid-season? I was asked about this on that, I think it was the What's Bruin podcast a couple of weeks ago, of like, hey, who in the city or who could they bring in like mid-season? College coaches and other professional coaches, whether the AHL or whatever, they're mid-season, unless it's a guy internally, it's going to be hard to get people to move and all that stuff. And like you can, like, it is the Bruins, but like that makes it a little bit harder. It just needs fresh eyes. And we talked about this weeks ago. Guys need to be in different spots. Like, take Pastrnak away from the one-timer, put him near the bumper, or, just put people in different spots and change up how teams have to cover you, open up other options, like, and that hasn't been. And look at it as a fresh start too. Leach has obviously improved defensively, because you're right, like, the high danger chances haven't been as prevalent. The goaltending has been the issue this year, whereas last year the goaltending hit all of your defensive faults. And what was the other thing? The roster, is it a roster problem? The roster's been brutal.
Yeah,
it's bad. Like, again, like, I thought this roster was better than I thought this roster was going to be way better. So like, I was kind of with the Bruins on that. I thought they'd be really good, and they haven't been. They've been terrible. Did no one ask about trading Marchand? I swore I thought I saw a question of yours trading Marchand.
I think I did see one. I didn't have it pulled up right now, but where do you stand on that?
I don't want to do it, and I don't think they would do it. But if I think he has the no movement, correct?
I believe so.
Like, he would have to approve where he went.
Yeah, I don't think he would waive that.
So like, that's going to hurt what you're going to get in a. It's like sort of like Taylor Hall. A couple of years ago, people were like, "Oh my God, what a steal for Don Sweeney!" And it's like, well, because Hall was really only going to go to Boston, so like, there's not much that the Sabres could ask for. I still think you would get legitimate things back for Marchand. Like you mentioned a guy who's like lighting up Junior. So again, I don't want them to trade Marchand, but if they were
they're not getting James Haggs.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going down that road. That's not happening. I'm looking at Colorado because he's friends with Nathan McKinnon. That would be a spot that I think, if we're being realistic, would be a spot he would go to because they're still in the playoff hunt. They have a good core, like all that stuff. They drafted in 2023 late first rounder Cal Ritchie, which I don't know a lot about this player. I just know he has like 34 points and 18 games with Oshawa. He's 6'2". There are people who are know a lot more about him than I do. So I'm not going to pretend to like know what he's like or whatever. But like, if you're going to trade Marchand, you better either get a first rounder in return and or some sort of top prospect. And Colorado has that guy with Cal Ritchie, and I believe they have their first. So like that is a team that has assets to give you if you were to entertain trading Marchand. Now, the downside to that obviously is he's your captain. You would have him retire. You want him to retire a Bruin. He's had a lot of success here. And to me, I think he's one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting player in the NHL. I think he's definitely, someone's got to do a book on him at some point. Yes. But I just, if you want to be better long-term for a retool, that's something you could entertain. The thing is though, he's still producing. He's played a lot better over the last month. Yeah. And he's second on your team in points. He's a legit fixture in your top 6. Like, you need him. But I just wonder if they said, you know what, this is not working out. And if they said to Marchand, like, hey, we're probably going to need to do a retool for the next 2 years. Do you really want to sign on to do that? I just wonder if they would entertain it and what you could possibly get. I'm not saying you would fully revamp your whole roster with that trade. But if you could get a first and a mid to high level prospect, maybe a second or a third rounder as well. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I think it just depends on how badly things degrade here, right? If this team looks like they're really not, if this team really looks like they're not going to make the playoffs, they go 0-5 on this road trip and they're out of the picture in January and February, then I think that changes things, right? But if they're still like clinging on and hope they can get a wild card spot, and I'll say that people are like, well, that they shouldn't be. They should just sell instead of trying just to punch a ticket to the playoffs. It means they're going to get bounced in 5 games, what have you. That's a legitimate argument, but I still don't think if you're trading a guy like Marchand, this team that still thinks they've got the bones of a team that should be competitive. I don't think you've seen anything this regular season that's painted that as being legitimate, but I think a lot would have to go wrong for this team to really entertain an option when they trade a guy like Marchand. And it, again, depends on
yes.
And it depends on what the return would be and his ability with the no movement to change things. Because again, it's like the same thing of, I think it's a modified no trade. I'm not sure if it's a no movement. If it was no movement and it's like, I just want to go to Colorado, well, you could be in the same spot of the Sabres with Taylor Hall, who had really good value as like what was he, 30? I think when they got him, like, and they got him for nothing. Like, so if he has a no
modified no trade, it's modified no trade.
So that gives you a little more options. If it was no movement, I'd be like, no, because if he only wants to go to Colorado knows that. They'd be like, all right, here's a second.
That's exactly it. That's the problem. Like, that's the things I mentioned, Callum Ritchie, first round picks are off the table if they're the only team. And that's all. And I also agree. Like, if they're if they continue to do what they've done. So let's say the rest of this road trip, they win, they go 1-1-1 and they're still in and around the wild card. They're not dealing him. Like, they want to make the playoffs. This is a team that fully expected at the beginning of the year to be cup contenders, and they're not giving up on trying to make the playoffs. So if they continue at the rate that they're at, where they're hot and cold and they're middle of the pack, they're not trading Marchand. They are not. And I agree with you. I think like anything can happen in the playoffs. Like, I'm not saying go invest in this team, but like if they're comfortably in that third Atlantic spot, like, and then maybe don't like retool, just see what you have and roll with it. But to go into my scenario of, it's a first and this and that, like for Marchand, they would be well out of the playoffs. Like that would be when you would trade Marchand. But I think it's an interesting thing because it would probably help you in getting talent around the guys you have now for the next 10 years. The problem is like, it would be unproven talent and things can go bad because trading Marchand you're getting close to a rebuild. It's still a retool, but it's close. And Marchand's a great leader, great captain, and I think holds the fabric of that room together. And you let go of him, and it's suddenly on McAvoy and Pastrnak, who have shown you nothing this year. In terms, have not shown you a lot this year. I shouldn't say nothing. Haven't shown you a lot this year in terms of leadership. So I don't have a ton of confidence in that either. So it's a slippery slope, but I think it's a fun debate topic. Didn't think we'd be talking about it this year, but here we are.
And here
Is that
we
it
are.
for questions?
That's about it. Yeah. We have a whole lot more, but I've got 4% left in my laptop battery, so I don't want to go radio silent either. So we had a whole bunch of questions.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the support, and we'll do these more. We should do these more throughout the year because we get to hear what the people think. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read me over at the Globe, Boston.com. We've covered every step of the way this season with recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So please read me over there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. Connor, go plug your laptop in. That's Poke the Bear. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.